The moon of Silna breathed in colors. Blue mist rose from moss-laden roots. Trees arched like the backs of sleeping giants, their leaves whispering secrets in the alien wind. Above this canopy, atop a broken watchtower that no longer served a city, a lone figure knelt in silence. Solon. He was not a warrior by choice. Silence had shaped him, not steel. He wore bone-forged armor out of obligation, not pride. His people called him Thane Vala, the Oath-Keeper. They believed he watched over the last sacred one of their kind, but he knew better. He watched because no one else would. Below him, at the base of the stone-rooted tree, the creature known as Nar lay dormant in gold chains that shimmered with ancient runes. Nar, the last Valari Wyrm. Not a beast. Not quite a god. He had wings like sails stretched across a dying world, scales that caught the stars in their pattern, and a voice that hadn't been heard in centuries. Because Nar hadn't spoken since the bond was broken. Solon had grown up believing Nar was holy. Untouchable. Unlovable. A being to be revered but never approached. But now, after 15 years of quiet service, he knew the truth. Nar wasn't sacred. He was lonely. And tonight, the silence between them would end. A line of fire tore across the pale sky. Solon's eyes tracked it instinctively. Not a meteor. Too controlled. Too deliberate. The descent ended with a crash just beyond the mirrored cliffs. Debris lit up the canopy. Birds scattered. The world trembled softly. Solon rose, hand on the carved haft of his staff blade. He didn't alert the monks. Didn't speak. He simply moved, like always. Alone. Emery's face hit the moss like a dropped paintbrush. The escape pod behind her hissed, coughed black smoke, and fell silent. Something in her chest felt cracked. Her hands were trembling. She rolled to her back, sucking in air like she'd been underwater. Hell of a landing, she muttered, coughing blood into her sleeve. She had fled the Empress's art vessel, one of the most luxurious ships in orbit above the midrim, after discovering her latest commission was meant to glorify an imperial massacre. She had stolen a pod, left her paints behind, and told herself freedom was worth death. And now she had crash-landed on a planet she couldn't name. The air was breathable. That was something. She limped through the forest, following strange glowing vines that pulsed with something like heartbeat. Her bare hands touched trunks that hummed with power. This place felt old. Older than any world she'd drawn. Then she heard the breathing. Slow. Rhythmic. Not human. It pulled her toward a clearing like gravity. And there, beneath a tree large enough to blot out the stars, she saw it. Nar. Her brain tried to process it in pieces. Wings folded like ink-stained silk. Scales that glowed faintly with runic patterns. A body that rose and fell like the tide. And golden eyes, not reptilian. Not beastly. Grieving. She stepped forward, then froze. Not out of fear. But reverence. He looked up. They locked eyes. The world held its breath. And then. He bowed. Not his head. Not just a shift in posture. Nar, last of the Valari, bowed. One massive clawed limb folded beneath him. His wings tucked tighter to his back. His gaze dropped from her face to her chest, like he was searching for something long lost. There was no growl. No threat. Only submission. Behind her, something moved. Solon stepped from the trees, staff blade at the ready. His mask covered most of his face, but the emotion in his posture betrayed him. Step back, he said in perfect Terran, his voice quiet but urgent. Emery turned slowly. Her arms raised. I'm not armed, she said. Step away from the sacred one, Solon repeated. He's not attacking me, she said, eyes wide. He bowed. That's not possible. And yet, she gestured toward Nar, whose head was still lowered. Solon's mask clicked softly as he processed the moment. Centuries of prophecy clashed with his lived reality. This human, this fragile, bleeding stranger, had just witnessed what no high monk ever had. The creature had chosen. Emery was escorted through the high temple's winding routes, not chained, but surrounded by enough armed guards to assure her she wasn't entirely welcome. Monks whispered behind their masks. Golden runes on obsidian walls pulsed softly when she passed. Inside her assigned quarters, bare stone, dim light, the smell of incense, she sat cross-legged, tracing the patterns of Nar from memory onto the floor with a wet finger. She'd always drawn what moved her. This was no different. The door opened with a hiss. Solon entered. Unmasked. His face was angular, high-boned, with tired eyes and a subtle scar across his jawline. His skin was marked with inked glyphs. Not decorative. Ceremonial. You've drawn him, he said, glancing at the floor. I had to, she replied. He sat across from her, no more than a meter between them. He bowed to you. She nodded. And yet you did not kneel to him. Emery raised an eyebrow. Was I supposed to? All who approach the sacred one bow. Even the monks. Even I. I didn't feel like he wanted worship. It felt like. She hesitated. Like recognition. Solon's eyes narrowed slightly. There is a prophecy, he said after a moment. A bond born not of command or conquest, but understanding. It was dismissed. Labeled as poetic nonsense. And now? He didn't answer. Why are you here? She asked him instead. His voice dropped. I was chosen to protect the sacred one. I was told he must never awaken. Because if he does, he remembers. Remembers what? Everything we buried to survive. Silence stretched between them. Long. Thoughtful. You don't fear him, Solon said. Should I? He studied her. I don't know anymore. Outside, a soft rumble echoed through the temple floor. Nar was stirring. Later that night, Emery stood in the sacred hall of the Valari, alone but watched. Tall windows showed a night sky filled with lavender stars. Vines of glowing crystals curled up the columns. Nar lay in the center, no longer chained. His eyes followed her as she walked. When she spoke, it was barely above a whisper. I don't know why you chose me. I'm not brave. Not strong. I ran away. His head tilted slightly. But when you looked at me, I felt like I mattered. Like I wasn't just running anymore. The massive creature exhaled slowly. The floor vibrated. I've always believed art is connection, she said, her voice cracking. And somehow, with you, I feel like I've known you all my life. Solon watched from the shadows. And for the first time in years, Nar made a sound. Not a growl. Not a roar. A hum. Low. Harmonic. Almost, musical. Emery froze. The monks began to chant. Solon stepped into the light. You've awakened something he buried long ago, he said. You are the echo of a bond that once saved our world. She turned to him, unsure whether to speak. He reached out, slowly. Touched her arm. The contact sent a soft warmth through her skin. Not fire. Understanding. What happens now? She asked. Solon looked at the golden WIRM. Now we remember what we were. And we find out what we could still become. Inar Caliph did not attend the city gatherings anymore. He had once danced in Apollon festivals, sung the ancestral harmonics, and shared petals with would-be mates during the bloom season. But not since Ione Valen came to Velir Prime. And not since Lyres died. He remembered her before the tragedy. The way she had wandered into the marketplace with her long earth hair tied in a loose braid, her fingers stained green from her plants. She'd asked about synth bark mulch, not knowing it could cause combustion in humid air, and nearly set a whole stall aflame. He had stopped her hand gently, silently, and told her the proper substrate. She had smiled. It was not the kind of smile that drew poets to write or lovers to weep. It was the kind of smile you remembered because you felt seen for a moment, without needing to prove you existed. And then Lyres met her. And Inar did not speak his feelings again. He helped when asked, brought her nutrient soil after sandstorms, replaced her grow light array when the regulators flickered. But he stayed in the shadows. Because she was happy. And he had decided, long ago, that her happiness mattered more than his comfort. 2. The arrest. The sky on Velir Prime never truly darkened. 2 suns meant that night came in pale silver, not blackness, and yet the day Ione Valen was taken, the light felt wrong. 2 still. He saw the escort from a distance, the veiled agents in grey armor, the cloaked official with his void-lit tattoos. He watched the gate open. Saw Ione step out, spine straight, hands calm. He could not hear the words, but he could see her lips move. You are summoned. And he saw her eyes flick once, toward the biodome behind her. To Mira. They did not knock again. They took her like a ghost from a living world. And Inar stood on the higher ridge of his own garden path, unmoving. What will you do? His sister had asked him, once, after the bond death decree had been issued for Lyres. Nothing, he'd said. But now, as he watched the woman he had loved from afar vanish beneath the justice of tradition, a tremor moved in his chest. Do something. 3. The child in hiding. It was past dusk when he approached the garden. The door to the biodome was unlocked, unusual for Ione. Inside, lights blinked softly and a synth-rigged hydration system misted the air. Mira, he called quietly. No answer. Then, a rustle. Beneath the composting unit, he heard a breath. Shallow. Stifled. Childlike. He crouched. Mira, he said again, softer now. I'm Inar. Your mother's friend. A pause. Then 2 dark eyes peeked from the shadows. They took her, the little girl whispered. Inar nodded. I saw. They think she's bad, she said. But she's not. She never hurt anyone. She grows flowers. She makes jam from the red moss and gives it to the sandbirds. He smiled gently. I know. Mira crawled out slowly. Her hair was tangled, and her small hands clutched a round object, one of her father's old recorders. It blinked faintly, still powered. They'll take me too, she said, eyes wide with fear. Because I'm wrong. His chest clenched. No, he whispered. You are beautifully right. And in that moment, he chose. 4. Crossing lines. Inar had never broken a law in his life. Veliorians believed in harmony, tradition, order. Symmetry of legacy, they called it. But tonight, he crossed from citizen to traitor. He carried Mira in a fiber cloak on his back, through the old irrigation tunnels carved during the second colony cycle. He disabled the outer motion sensors with a dampener pulse passed down from his aunt, a rebel in her youth. He made contact with a forgotten human outpost 3 ridges north, a place Ione once mentioned in a dreamlike tone, calling it half-broken but free. He left no footprints. Just the scent of crushed rose blossom beneath his boots. 5. Past and Petal. They waited the next night in a decommissioned observatory dome. Mira slept curled in a thermal wrap beside the old telescope. Inar stood at the open view panel, looking at the stars. He did not believe in prophecy. But the old priests had once said, when tradition burns and love rises from ash, a new petal blooms across the void. He thought of Ione. The softness in her hands. The quiet in her grief. The way her voice caught when she talked about earth rain, and how she missed the sound of water without dust in it. He had never told her he loved her. But maybe he didn't need to. Maybe this, choosing her daughter, choosing to act, choosing to break, was love enough. And when the contact beacon flashed green, and the outpost said, "We'll take the girl," he knew. He would go back for Ione. Even if it meant losing everything. Mira Valen had learned 3 things very early in her life. First, never press too hard on the jelly root pots or they'll explode. Second, Veliorians do not like questions with the word why. And third, some kinds of love are treated like mistakes. For a while, she had believed that was normal. That her mother's long silences and the way the village children stared at her were just part of life. But the day the officials came in silver-gray robes, the day they took her mother without touching her, just speaking her name as if it were poison. That was the day Mira stopped believing their rules. And started writing her own. She clutched her father's old data recorder to her chest. It pulsed softly under her palms, the way it always did when she was scared. As if it still remembered his hands too. She sat now in a ship she didn't understand, hidden in a crate filled with thermal filament, flying toward a place she didn't know. All she had were the last 3 sentences Inar Calith had said before vanishing back into the shadows. "This is a contact beacon. It will find someone like you. Don't be afraid to speak." 2. The Edgewind Network. The beacon activated while she slept. Its interface glowed red, then violet, then green, and then a face appeared. Not a human. Not a Veliorian. But something in between. Like her. A boy with silver-touched hair and golden-brown skin. His ears were slightly pointed. His eyes flickered like nebulae. He stared at her for a moment, then spoke softly. "You're the one they're calling the hybrid spark, right?" Mira blinked. "What?" "Your signal's been bouncing through the underground for 2 days, he said, smiling crookedly. "You activated a lineage recorder with a V-class core. Your father must have known how to hide things." Mira looked at the recorder. It was his songbox. The boy raised an eyebrow. "Not just a songbox. It's broadcasting a code pulse. One that activates every dormant integration archive in every system that's ever buried a hybrid." Myra's throat tightened. "I didn't mean to." "Maybe not," he said. "But you did something big." "Who are you?" she asked. He smiled wider. "Name's Kale. I'm one of the Edgewind kids." Mira frowned. "Edgewind?" His expression grew serious. "You're not alone anymore, Mira. There are hundreds of us. Born from both sides. And we've been waiting for a reason to speak." 3. Viral across the stars. Within 4 solar days, Myra's name was no longer just a secret. Her signal, encrypted through Kale's network, had become a movement. Across stations and outer belts, in domes and ships and deep-root bunkers, hybrid children came forward. Some were older than her. Some younger. Some had been hidden by one parent. Some had seen both parents disappear under tribunals. But now their messages flooded the channels. "I have 4 hearts and 2 names. My mother was cast out for loving someone different. I am not a mistake. I am proof." Mira didn't plan a speech. She wasn't even sure anyone would listen. But when Kale said, "They want to hear from you," she stood in front of the camera, hands shaking, heart full of too many things. And said, "My name is Mira Valen. I am 8. I like tea with root honey and I grow flowers that glow at night. My father was Veliorian. My mother is human. They loved each other, and they loved me." She paused. The recorder blinked gently, as if waiting. "Some people say we're illegal. But I say, we're alive. And I think that matters more." That was it. But it spread like fire in dry leaves. 4. Seeds of Hope. By the time Mira reached Station Ixel, she had messages waiting. From human diplomats. From underground Veliorian scholars. From artists, singers, and old hybrid healers who had been in hiding for years. Some messages were broken. Some came only in sound. Some came with offers of transport, sanctuary, or education. But the one that made her cry was from a woman who spoke in a trembling voice. My daughter was taken from me because her eyes glowed. I thought we were the only ones. Thank you for showing me we weren't. Mira played that message 10 times. Kale said nothing. He just handed her a warm drink and sat beside her. When she asked him why he helped her, he only said, because someone helped me once. 5. A message to the stars. In the weeks that followed, Myra's face appeared on more walls and data slates than she could count. But the moment she never forgot came on a quiet night, under a partial dome overlooking a broken garden. A projector flickered on beside her. It showed her mother. Tired, pale, but alive. Mira, Ione's voice said. You are more than I ever hoped for. Your voice, it saved me. Mira pressed her hands to her mouth. Beside the message sat a short recording. A song. One her father used to sing. In his voice. Inar found the backup, Kale said quietly. Your dad recorded it right before the tribunal came. Hidden in the synth core of a nutrient panel. Mira listened. Her father's voice. Soft. Strong. Full of love. The words in Veliorian, but she understood every beat. Even petals bloom in ash. Tyler Marev had once been called the future of Terran diplomacy. Eloquent. Restrained. Bred from generations of peace strategists. He had the kind of voice that made rooms still and the kind of eyes that memorized every treaty clause. But that was before the Velior Integration Pact, before the genetic compliance reforms, and before Ione Valen's name had landed on his desk in cold, unadorned black text. Subject, Human Citizen, Integration Breach. Status, Child Genetic Conflict. Recommend, Sanction plus Segregation. Tyler had skimmed it once. Clicked the approval box. He hadn't known her face then. Hadn't heard her voice. But later, much later, when the data leak exposed her story and the messages from her daughter Mira flooded the networks, he stared at the screen for hours with a single thought ringing in his skull. I did this. 2. The girl in the archive. He replayed the broadcast of Mira Valen 17 times. He tried to pretend it was analysis, part of his job. Part of monitoring galactic response. But the truth was simpler. Her eyes looked just like Leanne's. He hadn't spoken Leanne's name aloud in 5 years. She had been a research envoy on Velior Prime. Soft-spoken. Sun-brown skin, eyes bright like ion trails. They'd shared 3 months and 1 kiss before she left. She'd written 1 message before disappearing. They say I have to choose a side, Tyler. But the only side I want is yours. He never got the chance to reply. She never came back. They told him she had crossed a classification boundary, that she had joined an illegal biological study on interbreeding protocol. They never confirmed if she had died or disappeared. He buried her memory under ambition. And now Ione Valen's daughter had dug it up again with 1 sentence. I think being alive matters more than being approved. 3. Risk Protocol. There was a terminal in Tyler's office that no one else touched. It was encrypted with triple clearance, locked behind 2 biometric verifications. It was where the non-public directives were stored, the ones the Terran Assembly called strategic discretion files. The file on Ione Valen was still there. Along with the Shadow Protocol. If subject is seen as a threat to political harmony, terminate physically or through exile within 3 cycles of arrest. Tyler read the line 5 times. He could close the file. Let it happen. She'd disappear quietly. Just like Leanne. But then his eyes drifted to a tiny embedded thumbnail. A still image from Myra's latest broadcast. The child holding a blue flower in her hand. A bloom that only grew in the outer cliffs of Vellier Prime. Just like the ones Leanne had loved. Don't be a coward. He stood. 4. To break the machine. He called in a favor from a woman named Senna Myral, an old classmate who worked on the Integration Ethics Board. What you're asking is treason, she said flatly, voice calm. No, Tyler replied. What I signed was. They met in the lower ducts of the Interplanetary Records Bank, masked, cloaked. He handed her a drive. These are the original orders, he said. And the hidden clauses. If this gets out, it'll collapse the alliance. Then let it collapse. She stared at him. This isn't like you. He looked at her with eyes that had once memorized laws and now only remembered a lost kiss. You don't know me anymore. 5. Into fire. Tyler rerouted his authority code one last time. He used it to schedule a transfer. Ione Valen was scheduled for relocation to Lunar Holding Zone 3, a fancy phrase that often meant disappearance. But with a few keystrokes and 2 rewritten verification nodes, her destination changed. New destination, Station Ixel. Reason, diplomatic reevaluation. Transport, secured. The transfer would take 12 hours to complete. In those 12 hours, he became the most wanted human in the Terran Assembly. He didn't care. He walked into the station hangar as the transport arrived. Ione was inside. Gaunt. Silent. Shackled. Who are you? She asked when he approached. He took off his diplomatic pin and dropped it at her feet. I'm the man who signed your arrest, he said. She didn't speak. And the one who's now giving you a second chance. Ione looked at him, not with forgiveness, but with a cold curiosity. Why? He took a long breath. Because I once loved someone who looked at me the same way your daughter looks at you.